Hi, welcome to CCTV, Channel 17, live at 525, the Preservation Burlington Show. Preservation Burlington is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Our mission is to preserve and protect the historic architecture and livability of Burlington through education and advocacy. I think I need to raise the cue card, so I'm looking at the screen when I'm talking, not. Thanks again for tuning in. I know it's been quite a hiatus, but we've had a couple of good shows in a row now. And yep, and Preservation Burlington's been staying busy with webinars. We've been doing virtual walking tours all through the past couple of years. Of course, we've done some live stuff, and we have a full schedule set up for this summer of neighborhood walking tours in an effort to compensate for the last couple of years of not doing the homes tour. So all of that's going to be pretty fun and exciting stuff. I'm really pleased to say that past president, Preservation Burlington, Karen Norwood, is here, who's been spearheading a lot of our virtual offerings with, I think, not surprising in the content, but surprising in that we don't do that normally, how popular they've been.
Yeah, right? It's really, really exciting to see a lot of people just excited to learn about. We've been focusing on the last couple webinars we've done on architectural styles in Burlington, and that's something that people have been really excited about because one of the great things about Burlington is it's such an awesome place to go for walks and to go out and to be able to identify architecture and learn a little bit about what you're seeing around you is just really fun. And it's been something that I think a lot of people are really interested in. So it's great to see.
Turns out they are.
Yeah.
So a little bit about you, because you're obviously really good at this. You teach, right?
Yes. I graduated from the UVM Historic Preservation Program in 2013, but I also am a teacher as well. So I really, really love to educate people about the past, and really fortunate to be able to still be with Preservation Burlington and be able to help and participate with our educational activities like webinars. Mm-hmm. And I just think there's nothing more exciting than teaching people about what we have all around you, us, our historical surroundings.
Yeah, education committee member, of course, and
yeah.
Yeah, it's great, obviously, having you still be a part of the group. How about the Ramble?
The Ramble, yes, the Ramble was so much fun. It was so exciting to be able to.
It must have been like 100 people. I don't know, right? 2 megaphones, two tour guides.
I think so we did a in-person walking tour at the Ramble this past summer, and we had a huge turnout through the Old North End, learning a little bit about the past. We had an amazing intern with us, yep. Nick Agresta, who did a lot of great research with us to put together that tour, and a lot of people showed up. I think everyone was just really excited to be able to get out, to be with other people, to walk around a community and learn. So I'm hoping we'll be able to this summer. We're hoping to have a bunch of walking tours available for the public to get people back out because
they want it, and
yeah.
It is the best way to do it.
It's the best way to do it.
The virtual stuff is interesting. I've been doing all kinds of like webinars
yeah.
and different things, but there's definitely like a Zoom burnout where it's like the nice thing is you miss it. Like I missed our webinar because I had a conflict and I was so upset. Hence, thank you for coming in and doing it over again for me
Absolutely.
Personally right here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, but a lot of times, they're available later, so you can rewatch them or watch them if you miss them.
Definitely, so. And we don't have a whole lot of time for the program today, so I definitely can't go into every single the full length of the webinar that I did a few weeks ago on Burlington's architecture by neighborhood, but we will have that posted on our website. So if you do want to watch the whole thing and go through all of those slides and learn about the different neighborhoods, that's definitely going to be available for you.
It's great. Yeah, there's a lot of slides. I know we won't get through all of it today, but so you said earlier, and it is true, walking around Burlington is a lot of fun. But the thing I like about the way you've put the slides together, and of course broke this down by neighborhood. Yep. So it's architectural style, but it's also pretty easily broken down by neighborhoods, right?
Yeah. Yes, and I didn't get to every single neighborhood. That would have been like a 200 slide presentation, but we can certainly, I can give you a little sneak preview of what we started to talk with. So the first neighborhood we really were focusing on was in the downtown area. And so what you're gonna see in a moment is First of all, that buildings and their styles provide clues to when neighborhoods are developed. So when you look around in Burlington, you're going to see a whole bunch of different styles in neighborhoods, and they're oftentimes grouped together because that's when that neighborhood was developed. So I kind of went through oldest up to modern. So the webinar went through downtown, looking at Pearl to King, which is kind of the earliest area settled by Europeans. And then I went into the Hill section, the Old North End, the Five Sisters, Prospect Park, that area, and then the New North End. So looking through the 1800s all the way up to the mid-20th century or later. And now the mid-20th century, that's considered historic architecture.
Right,
so,
60 years or older.
Yep.
And if Washington slept there, then there's 2 strikes for making it historic.
I know. So for all of you who what's it now, 50 years?
60 years ago, right? Is it 50 or it's 50?
It's 50. The bar is 50.
So 1970, 1972.
Anyone around that age, you're historic.
So those split levels from my childhood are all historic
They're
now.
getting up there. Yes, they are. And they
right.
tell a really interesting story about the United States at that time. So right now on this, you can see there is an image from 1830. This is the plan of Burlington Village by Annie B. Young. All these images are available, and I really recommend going to UVM Center for Digital Initiatives. It's an online, incredible collection of maps, photographs of Burlington. So if you really want to do some more research about your community, your neighborhood in Burlington, check those maps out. It's a fabulous resource. You can zoom in and out, and there's just so much to see about how Burlington's changed over time.
It's so cool to see those big blank areas where now there's all streets and houses. And, you compare that map to the bird's eye map of 1877.
Yeah.
And even then, the development was really taking off.
Crazy. And I mean, that really, we see so much growth in Burlington with like the historic architecture from the mid 1800s up until the early 1900s, because this was a period where Burlington had its biggest boom in population, with the lumber industry really thriving, and Burlington was just really growing at this time. So a lot of the architecture we see mirrors that time period. Yep, you live in a gorgeous old house.
I do, thank you. Yeah. And I think, it's funny. So it's not federal style. The massing is federal style, but it's an Italianate. It lost its cupola. But it's funny, it was built on the Redstone Quarry land that Daniel Dyer Howard purchased the land from the quarry.
Yeah.
And so there's an attachment to my deed that I'm not allowed to quarry the land. So nobody
upsetting.
since has been allowed to quarry the land. Non-competition clause.
That's fascinating. So let's start talking a little bit about the downtown area. So that's the earliest area where Europeans were settling, and that's where we see one of our earliest styles, so the federal style of architecture. All of these earliest styles are really borrowed from Europe. So what was trendy over there was brought over here. Federal is considered the first national style of our new country. And it was really modeled off of Roman architecture.
Wasn't it before we hated the king? Wasn't it called Georgian?
Yeah, Georgian was before federal. So Georgian was this time, we're like, George, he's great. But yeah, federal came in, and that was like, this is our new colony, this is our new nation, and we had a new style. We left King George behind with a Georgian architecture.
That's right.
Yeah, so you'll see federals all along Pearl Street. So there's a great example up there with our wonderful 1860 Federal style church right along Pearl Street at the top of Church. You can always tell Federal by the fan shape. So there's a fan light. So when you look for the round arches above windows or doors, that's a dead giveaway of the Federal style of architecture. I have a couple more examples. Yeah, so this is right on Pearl, covered in ivy, but you can see that fan light above the door, and it's such a distinct giveaway of that style.
Yeah.
So when you see the fan light, usually, and you're in an area that was developed in, the early 1800s, it's probably a Federal.
And the massing is very symmetrical.
Yeah.
So there's two windows on each side of a door,
Very
two windows
ordered.
above that, very ordered. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another style we see often that goes right along with that, and that's the Greek Revival style. So you'll see this all throughout the downtown as well. And we have high style examples of it, and we have more vernacular less ornate examples of this style. So Greek Revival style happened in the 1830s up until the 1850s or so. This was a really popular style that, you guessed it,
That looks
was
familiar.
like after Greek temples. So you can see this one is the Tim Follett House. And this is a really great high style example.
Yeah, that's Follett, right? You see that from the waterfront. Yep.
He had big parties there in the 1840s, and then he lost all his money and died, I think, in an insane asylum.
I think so, yeah. It's an interesting story, but not a happy story.
Not a happy story.
Beautiful house, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an example of a more simple Greek Revival, and I like to use this one as an example of a building that's changed over time. There's an addition to the front of it, a one-story addition that kind of wraps around, and
With the coins on the corner. So is that Italianate technically, or?
I mean, it has, the coins are definitely an indication of Italianate. However, I think this is probably, 1980s or so. And I wouldn't say, Ron, would you say this is a good addition to this Greek Revival or not so good?
I would say it's less than sympathetic to the original design. You can still make out the pedimented gable, though.
You can. So in the 1850s, we have a boom in Burlington. You can see it's a lot more developed as you think about that 1830s map. We're looking in the 1850s. Sure. Burlington's starting to build up. Lumber industry is starting to get going, and you can see more people are settling. There's more buildings and more houses. So these two, you see the J.W. Hickok building. This, I think, is owned by UVM, and I think it's a sorority.
Okay. Yeah.
Delta, Delta, Delta. And
yes,
the other building is owned by Champlain College now. And again, so there's a lot of these wealthy people who have really great high style examples of styles. The J.W. Hickok is actually one of the earliest Italianates in Burlington that we have. I think it's like 1852 or so. So. Yeah, and speaking of Italianates, I think we have an image up here. So there it is today. Yep. And then I think I have another, perfect. So the Italianate style, super, super popular in the United States. You see this throughout, and you'll see a lot of examples, again, in Burlington's downtown area. Really distinct with the overhanging eaves and the bracketed cornice.
Yeah, the heavy cornice.
Yep, usually like a flat or low-lying hipped roof, tall windows, and then they often have crowns on top of them, which that's such a beautiful version of an Italianate.
That's a really great. That's on Union Street, isn't it?
Yep. I think, do we have them on the Homes Tour a few years ago? Or maybe it's the Queen Anne next door.
Yeah, I think it's the Queen Anne next door. I think this one is condominiumized, so there's like a couple of units in the front, and then they built off of the back. And they built well because everything off the back is sort of hidden. So the house still stands alone as an example of its architecture.
Love it. It's a great example. There's another example of an Italianate, and it has the cupola on the top, or the belvedere. So that's another kind of distinct giveaway of that style.
You can stay at that one.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so gorgeous. Second Empire.
That was on the Homes Tour one year.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was. I just remembered that.
Okay. Yeah, and another style you're going to see is the Second Empire style. Super distinct and fun. It comes out of France, actually, and the roof is a mansard roof, and so that's a dead giveaway. It's like a double-hipped roof, and it has that really distinct shape. And whenever you see one of those buildings, you can almost guess it's from the 1870s.
Yeah.
Because that was like the heyday of that.
Big heyday of it. It's don't tell my house, but it's one of my favorites.
I love the Second Empire style too. It's so wonderful.
As did the Addams Family.
It's spooky. Everyone is
very spooky.
It's synonymous now with like spooky houses.
Yep.
But I like a Second Empire.
I do too. It's definitely my favorite. Italianate being my second favorite. Queen Anne's are fun.
Yeah, they are.
They're super
All right,
fun.
1890 Burlington.
Let's get into Queen Anne's.
It's getting so developed, yes. And
look how big.
by that time period is the Queen Anne style. This one's super fun. It's really eclectic, and we have a lot of really great examples of Queen Anne's.
Builders and architects went wild.
They went wild. You can see them throughout Burlington. There's the patterned shingle work, and there's different colors. They have usually a tower on them. They're usually pretty asymmetrical in shape. And you'll see many streets of Burlington like this, where you have just kind of rows of Queen Anne's that are now kind of all chopped up into apartment buildings.
Yeah. Because they were so big,
Yeah.
too, at the time.
Yeah.
Little doors everywhere.
I know, it's so fun.
I think a friend of mine has a Queen Anne off of Mansfield, and I think they've got 7 doors on the first floor heading out.
It's crazy.
No front door, back door. You know, there's side doors. There's a couple of side doors. There's a door off of the the bay window. They're definitely a fun house.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through the hill section, and then I'd love to. I don't know how much more time we have.
Oh, we've got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to touch upon the hill section, and then it's really cool. We'll see a lot of more folk examples or more vernacular examples of these same styles in the Old North End. So the hill section, this is generally a more well-to-do neighborhood area, and it's still more of a well-to-do area in Burlington. And there's
You said generally because that's where my house is.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Generally, except Ron.
Except for me. That's right.
This is a great high-style example of a Tudor Revival right by Champlain College. And Tudor Revivals, you guessed it, it's like thinking medieval, turn of like Renaissance period where you have like the really steep-shaped roof pitches, the front-facing gable, and you have usually sometimes a stucco siding, so kind of mimicking like if you think of like old English streets with like the tall, skinny gable roofs, and
sometimes timbered with
the
wattle
timbered
and daub and stucco
yeah,
in
and they
between.
do that with Tudor Revivals too. They'll have like the fake wooden timbers on there to kind of mimic that time period.
Right.
Here's another really awesome high-style example of a Queen Anne. One of the very best at UVM. You really can't beat that building.
It's an amazing building. That's the Alumni House, right?
Yep.
61 Summit Street. Everybody can go take a look at it. We've had events there.
Yeah, and this one has really incredible woodworking too, which I think you were involved
Albert Whittakin.
with restoring.
Yep, we got to take all those panels off of that building, take them to our shop, fill them and patch them and paint them and put them back. So yeah, there it is.
It's gorgeous.
Create those little pieces everywhere. It's great because that porte cochere, when you pull in the direction you're supposed to pull in, there's a happy Greek face there.
Yeah.
And as you pull out, it's angry and sad because you're leaving.
It's so cute.
was
They
really
don't build them like they used to.
They don't build them like they used to.
No, sir. Oh,
That's why we got to save them,
that's right.
each and every one.
That's right. Colonial Revival. So this is a really broad style. It's so diverse in the examples that you'll see. You'll see Dutch colonials with like the gambrel roof. You'll see Georgian revivals. They're all over. And it spans from the late 19th century up to the mid 20th
So
century.
long, so popular
So
for so
long,
long.
so popular. Yeah, in the hill section, you'll see a lot of really great examples of the style. Gorgeous one there. There's another one. This one is a little bit later, and you can tell it was really done. I almost feel like sometimes the later that you get in like the 40s, 50s, I feel like the houses almost become even more accurate to their colonial
They were trying
styles.
harder to
They
be
were
really.
trying harder. It was less eclectic.
Yep.
This one's actually a neoclassical building, so it has that tall 2-story entry and then the 1-story porch that wraps around it, and that's pretty much a hallmark of the neoclassical. Again,
So
same time period.
neoclassical, what era would that be? What
So
year?
that's pretty much kind of the same spectrum as Colonial Revival. Yep. But the distinguishing feature is the full height entry porch.
Okay.
And that kind of
columns
makes
and
it different.
columns
Yeah.
with capitals and everything.
Yeah, that's a way to distinguish it from the Colonial Revival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is an interesting house, right? Shingle Style runs the gamut, but I know this is in the neighborhood that I'm in, and there's, I think, at least four of them that are identical. 2, and then the other street 2, back to back, sort of. You know, and then actually this one I think is right on Willard. So.
Yeah. Yeah, Shingle Style is really fun again, and this was considered one of our early first American, like, true architectural styles. And really the way to identify this one is it usually will have like a gambrel roof line. It's sometimes irregular, but then it also has cladding that really just wraps around it like a second skin. That's a distinctive way about it. There's an amazing high style example. I think there's one right on the next. Yeah, this one's a great example of a Shingle Style. I think they won a preservation award from us a few years ago, this property.
Squinting, I want to see where it's hanging up. I think you're right though.
They did. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Nice Shingle Style. This one's fun. I haven't seen any other examples of this, but this is also in the hill section. French eclectic. Again, this is part of that whole period of revival architecture. And yeah,
See the little diamond pane windows?
yeah, the
and
diamond pane
weird-
windows,
weird
absolutely.
steep roof line.
Yeah, the roof line's outrageous. But yeah, that's the only example of a French eclectic style
Sort
house
of an
I've seen.
inset dormer into
Yeah.
the roof. You know,
So fun.
pretty neat stuff.
Absolutely.
How long did you have to walk around town to find that one?
I've taken so many photos of so many houses, Ron. It's really crazy. So we're going to get to my neighborhood, which is awesome. I'm glad we get to talk about it. It's the Old North End. And the Old North End, this area was really settled by a lot of immigrants. Today, it is still a very diverse place, which is amazing. I love the Old North End for its diversity and culture. And Old North End really was an area that had a lot more vernacular or simple houses, just because it was more of an area that was more for like the working class versus the hill section. So you'll see a lot of houses like this one, which really don't have a style. In that case, they're just kind of called a folk house. My own house is a folk house. It's simple gable front. You'll see them all through. It's actually a very common profile. If you walk down a street in the Old North End, you'll just see kind of rows of gable front
With
gable
the
front
L,
houses. Yeah, with
L
like
off
a,
the back,
yep.
or
Yeah, it's super common. There's another example of one.
the vernacular.
The vernacular. I love them.
Yeah.
This is a vernacular Greek revival. You can just tell it is. It's from that time period. And instead of having that elaborate temple front like we saw on Tim Follett's house, we have just like little cornice returns.
Yeah, little returns.
Yeah,
still,
that
but-
indicate that it's Greek revival. So it has a little bit of the style, but obviously the people that owned that house couldn't afford all of it.
Right, a little more humble.
A little more humble. Yep.
No, this is, I mean, the colors, obviously,
Yeah.
but you know, because the colors, you know, you think Queen Anne because of the way they painted the Queen Anne's in San Francisco, which isn't necessarily accurate, but what's this?
This is an Italianate.
Ah,
Yeah, so
heavy bracket.
heavy bracketed flat roof line. You can see the brackets on it. And this one is in the Old North End. And unlike, you know, that big fancy one we saw was kind of standalone, all in brick, this one was a duplex. So it was made for people, multiple families to live there. Again, indicative of the socioeconomic level in this community. And then, you know, with these simpler examples of styles, it shows like everyone wanted to have the fashion of the time period, and you could do it with just a little bit of embellishment. And it's really cool to see that in the Old North End as compared to the hill section.
Sometimes you can see that's a fun thing about working on older houses too. Like you'll see, you know, a vernacular house, but it'll have all these like added on embellishments from a different period. So if it was built in the early 1800s or something, then all of a sudden it's got Italian.
Yeah, you can see
Italian
those
accoutrement.
changes. It's so fun because they're like, I want to update and modernize it, and so you added in like the next thing. This is a Queen Anne duplex. You can see it's asymmetrical. There's like a tower on one side. Just a really nice example of the style for the Old North End.
Yeah, and pretty big and
Pretty
fancy.
big. Here's some more examples of the Queen Anne that you'll see in the neighborhood in the Old North End. Again, very diverse architectural style.
Ah,
These ones are so great.
are you gonna tell a story?
Do you want to tell the story? I can tell the story.
Yeah, because you know it better than I do. But John Roberts, right? We see them all over
Yeah,
town.
You see them all over town. John Roberts. So John Roberts was a builder in the area, like around the 1890s or so, and he built these houses, these simple gable front houses with a bay window, with the Queen Anne embellishment in the gable, as a way for people to have the style of the time, the Queen Anne style of the time, but also at a very affordable price. And they're so fun. You'll see
fun
them,
and
it's like a
fancy.
scavenger hunt. You walk around Burlington neighborhoods and you're like, there's a John Roberts house, there's a John Roberts house. And they're so distinctive because see, they were built really like the plan of the houses is very much the same.
Yeah, yeah. Once you see one, you see them everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you buy a new car and then you see that car everywhere. Same thing. You're like, ooh, John Roberts' house.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, every time you turn around, there's one there.
Have you ever been in a John Roberts house?
I have.
Is it amazing?
They are pretty neat, yeah. Little stairwells and nice trim work inside, and you know. And then he just disappeared, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of like fades away. I don't really know too much about
Oh,
what
nobody
happened
can put
with
their
him.
thumb on it. It's maybe bankruptcy, maybe murdered, maybe there's like a whole bunch of different stories out there that just disappeared. I smell a research paper or a
Yes,
thesis or
somebody
something.
needs to research that, uncover the mystery. You'll also see a lot of Dutch you'll see a lot of colonial revivals, especially the further up in the Old North End you get kind of going towards Winooski. You'll see more colonial revivals. And so this is an example of a Dutch colonial revival with the flared eaves, and it was actually, I think it's on a street called like Colonial Lane or something like that.
Really?
I can't. Yeah, and there's a ton of really great examples of the style there. You'll also see in the Old North End.
I love these too.
Yeah, American Foursquare. So this is a shape, not a style. So it might have had styles applied to it. This one has some craftsman embellishments to it. But it's kind of how it sounds. It's a square shape, 2-story. It has a front dormer almost always. It has a full width 1-story front porch, a hipped roof. Very distinctive. Early 20th century, you'll see those. And then you'll see also craftsmen.
Right, which kind of borrow that same, you know, like those 4 squares can lean craftsman-y because the change of siding and different things like that. The porch
so
posts.
craftsman was a response to industrialization, and it really is focusing, it actually was borrowed from like arts and crafts movement in England, and it was brought over starting in California with the Green and Green brothers, and then it kind of became super widespread and prevalent in the United States. You'll see many, many examples of craftsmen
thumbing their
throughout.
nose at industrialization.
Yes, yes, yes. And we don't have a whole lot of time left, but the Five Sisters neighborhood is a really fascinating part of Burlington. So the streets are named after 5 sisters, and these were sisters of Maria Buell Hungerford, so they were her children, and the streets were named after them. So she was just like a wealthy family from the Buell Estate. They kind of chopped up several big estates to form the Five Sisters neighborhoods in the 1920s.
Yep.
And this is one of the estates that was broken up. This is the Hickok Estate. And so in the 1920s, all this land was sold up to developers, and they created the Five Sisters. And the Five Sisters is just an amazing, distinct neighborhood in Burlington.
It gets like in magazines all the time. Best place to live, and
it's amazing. It's a fabulous neighborhood. I walk through the Five Sisters. Walkable. Houses are cute. Yeah, this whole neighborhood was developed for working class families and made in the latest styles of the day. So you'll see lots of really great examples of colonial revivals, Tudor revivals, craftsmen throughout the neighborhood. And they're adorable.
Walk there today, don't drive, because the Rotary's being done over.
Yes, it's a hot mess there. So you'll see Tudor revivals in that neighborhood. It's, again, the steep pitched. You'll see craftsmen as you walk through. You'll also see kit houses.
Yes. Yeah, we did a homes tour on kit houses that one year. So
Yeah.
we got a lot of them in that neighborhood.
Yeah, kit houses are the best. They're so fun. And then you'll see colonial revivals as well. So kit houses is really cool and might be not a bad way to end. So kit houses were developed.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Kit houses was in the early 20th century, and basically there were tons of big companies like Sears and Roebuck, Aladdin.
Yep.
And basically they created catalogs, and families could like look through these catalogs and pick out a house that they wanted.
Pieces would all be shipped to them by the train. The builder would pick those parts up and build the house just like in the picture.
Yeah, it's also a fun scavenger hunt. So there's tons of people who are like kit house enthusiasts, and they'll go through neighborhoods and they're like, ah, like I think that could be Sears, like the Lucerne. And so it's just a really awesome, cool development in American architecture.
Just so you know, even so, if we go over, the picture goes away, but we could talk the rest of the night if you want, because we could just stay here and go on and on and on, because it's such a fun topic.
Hours.
I think that I think we've given everybody a good. They can go deeper on our website, but very obviously there's amazing places to walk all over town, and and just once you start, Field Guide to American Houses, great book if you get a used copy of it, and just walk around, look for them. It's so much fun,
So much fun.
And the maps. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope people can join us this summer for some walking tours. I hope you check out, we will be posting the webinar, so you want to hear about the other more modern neighborhoods, you can find it on our website.
Yep, and the schedule will be posted up there too. So because I know we planned a lot of stuff, so I can't remember it off my head when things are hitting. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in to CCTV live at 525 in Preservation Burlington. For more information on Burlington history or our tours and events, like we just said, or to get a marker for your house, go to preservationburlington.org, and we'll see you next month. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Karen.
Hey, it's fun.